Port Charles has seen its fair share of courtroom fireworks, but nothing quite compares to the electric charge in the air when Diane Miller steps back into the legal arena. Her heels strike the marble floor of the courthouse like a metronome counting down to destiny, each step echoing with the promise of brilliant strategy, ruthless precision, and a fierce loyalty to those under her protection. When Diane returns, it is never just about the law. It is about survival. It is about truth wrapped in deception, justice tangled with betrayal, and the quiet, devastating human cost that follows every verdict. And this time, the center of the storm is Willow Tate. Once the embodiment of gentleness and resilience, Willow now stands on the edge of a legal and emotional abyss. Her future, her freedom, her family, her very identity, hangs by a thread. And as secrets claw their way into the light and alliances fracture under the weight of unspoken truths, Diane Miller becomes both shield and sword in a battle that may be impossible to win without sacrifice. Diane Miller's return is not announced with a press release or formal summons. It is felt. Like a change in barometric pressure before a storm, the mood in Port Charles shifts. Prosecutors grow cautious. Defense attorneys whisper in hallways. Judges prepare for long nights of sharply argued motions and devastating cross-examinations. Diane does not merely practice law, she commands it. Her reputation precedes her. The attorney who can dismantle a case with a single well-placed objection, who can reduce a hostile witness to stammering fragments with a raised eyebrow and a deceptively polite question. She is elegance and ferocity in equal measure, a woman who understands that the courtroom is not only a place of statutes and precedents, but a theater of human weakness. And she has returned for Willow. Willow's life has always been defined by survival. From a childhood marked by manipulation and lies, to a young adulthood shaped by illness, loss, and relentless emotional trials, she has learned to endure. But endurance is not the same as safety. Now, Willow finds herself ensnared in a legal nightmare that threatens to strip away everything she has fought to protect: her children, her marriage, her fragile sense of stability. The charges looming over her are not just legal, they are moral, emotional, and deeply personal. They speak to decisions made in desperation, to secrets kept out of love and fear, and to the unforgiving nature of a system that rarely accounts for the messy complexity of the human heart. In the eyes of the law, motives do not always matter. Facts do. Evidence does. And the evidence is beginning to paint a picture that could destroy her. For Diane Miller, defending Willow is not just another case. It is a mission. She sees in Willow not a criminal, but a woman cornered by circumstance, a mother whose every choice has been driven by the primal instinct to protect her children. Diane understands that the law can be both a shield and a weapon, and she intends to wield it with surgical precision. Her first move is control. She studies every document, every statement, every surveillance clip and medical report, building a mental map of the prosecution's strategy. She anticipates their angles, their emotional hooks, their attempts to frame Willow as reckless, dishonest, or worse, calculated. Diane's approach is methodical. She knows that to protect Willow, she must do more than argue innocence. She must humanize her. She must make the court see what the headlines will not: a woman trapped in a web of impossible choices, where every path leads to loss. But even the strongest defense can be undermined by the one thing no attorney can fully control: betrayal. The most dangerous threat to Willow's case does not come from the prosecution. It comes from within her own circle. Port Charles is a town built on secrets, and secrets have a way of turning allies into liabilities. A single confession, a moment of guilt-fueled honesty, a recording made in anger or despair, any of these could unravel months of careful legal preparation. Diane senses it immediately: the hesitation in a witness's voice, the averted gaze, the subtle shift in body language when certain names are mentioned. To say it, whether driven by fear, loyalty to another, or a misguided belief that the truth will somehow make everything right, this potential betrayal threatens to hand the prosecution exactly what they need: a narrative of intent. A story that transforms Willow from victim of circumstance into architect of her own downfall. Diane, ever the strategist, begins to tighten her circle. She warns Willow with brutal honesty: trust is a luxury they can no longer afford. In court, Diane is unstoppable. She dissects testimony with surgical clarity, exposing inconsistencies, highlighting assumptions, and reminding the jury that suspicion is not proof. Her cross-examinations are masterclasses in controlled aggression, her voice calm even as her questions cut deep. She forces experts to admit the limits of their conclusions. She corners investigators into acknowledging procedural shortcuts. She reframes timelines, casting doubt on what once seemed airtight. But perhaps her greatest weapon is empathy. When Diane speaks of Willow's children, of the medical crises, of the endless nights spent making impossible decisions, the courtroom quiets. Jurors shift in their seats. The abstract becomes personal. The defendant becomes a mother, a woman, a human being. For a moment, it seems as though justice might actually prevail. And yet, beneath the brilliance of Diane's defense, a darker current flows. There are pieces of the story still hidden. Evidence not yet revealed. Conversations that, if brought to light, could shatter even the most carefully constructed argument. The law is a chessboard, and somewhere, an unseen hand is preparing a move that will change everything. For Willow, the tragedy may not be a guilty verdict alone. It may be the loss of trust. The realization that someone she depended on chose self-preservation over loyalty. The knowledge that love, in its most desperate form, can still lead to ruin. Diane can fight the court. She can outmaneuver opposing counsel. She can challenge evidence and sway juries. But she cannot undo the emotional devastation that follows betrayal. As the case hurtles toward its climax, the question is no longer simply whether Willow will walk free. It is what will be left of her if she does. A marriage strained by secrets. Friendships fractured by suspicion. Children caught in the crossfire of adult choices and legal consequences. Even an acquittal may come at the cost of the life she once believed she was building. Diane Miller stands at the center of it all, a formidable guardian in a world that offers no guarantees. She will fight with everything she has, because that is who she is. Because for her, the law is not just a profession, it is a promise. A promise to stand between the vulnerable and the abyss, no matter how close the edge may be. But as Port Charles has learned time and again, not every battle can be won without loss. And as Willow Tate's future hangs in the balance, one truth becomes heartbreakingly clear. Justice may be blind, but tragedy never is.